Go ahead and get the recording started. We'll be getting going here in just a minute or so, maybe a little less than that. Hope everyone's enjoying the conference so far.
Nice. We get the thumb. It's excellent.
Hey, excellent. All right. Thumbs up for the conference. We'll take it.
So this is going to be a lot less formal. Feel free to unmute yourself, and you can turn your camera on if you'd like. You do not have to run this like the webinar where you sit and absorb. The hope is that we're doing a little more interactive discussion on APIs and how to use them, not just a presentation.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely meant to be interactive. So yeah, you're welcome to turn your cameras on, unmute yourself if it's quiet in your background or you're asking a question. Feel free to join in the conversation. And I think we're at starting time. Our 30 minutes is starting now, so we can go ahead and get started. I'm Tom Metz, Technical Director for Smart Church Solutions. This is Matt. Let you introduce yourself, Matt.
Yeah, my name is Matt Baylor. I am the newest member of the team to the tech team, software development team. And I do software development, although my background has been across the spectrum of IT stuff and church stuff. And the joke among the developers is we have the no or low hair club, and I am a member of that as well. So
yes, and those that are able to grow beards on our team seem to have done so, and those that have not are wise enough not to try, I guess. So yeah, welcome. Let's just open it up from the beginning. I'm curious to know if any of you are using eSPACE APIs and how you're using them. We've got some things some tools we can show you of a couple of things that we're doing that I think might be kind of cool. But let's see how you guys are using them so far and what some creativity has been put in so far.
So I'm John Osteen. I'm the Director of Technology for Grace Community Church
Hey, John, welcome.
Tyler, Texas. Thanks. And we've been using work orders for a while now, and we're just here in the next little bit going to go live with events.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been using Church Community Builder. So I just over the last 2 or 3 weeks kind of started poking around in the API to do an export out of CCB and then create all the events with the API rather than having people redo their stuff.
Okay.
So it was a lot of fun.
There's actually an integration that you can turn on inside of the events that will suck
I know. I didn't want to
those.
tell anybody about it.
Okay.
It's fair. It's fair.
Hey, I give you respect for doing the API route. I think that's great. We just recently, I say recently, it's probably been maybe in the past few months, opened up our APIs because our APIs had been pretty much event scheduler side, and now we've got work order side APIs. I don't know if you've seen those, John, but we've got work order APIs as well.
I've seen some of them, but all the focus has been on events so far.
Okay. Yep. Very cool. Well, so are you coding those by hand, or how would you do migration?
So I coded it by hand.
Okay, great.
I mean, ChatGPT coded it by hand, and I copy pasted it by hand.
There you go.
There you go. That works.
Yeah, I will say I've gotten some very surprising and exciting results by pointing ChatGPT towards not just the eSPACE documented APIs, but really any documented APIs, and then say, hey, how would you code this in Python if knowing these API specs? And it does a surprisingly good job at a first attempt and even refinements. So yes, awesome. Thank you, John. Anybody else have any ideas or suggestions or how they wanted to share with us how they're using the APIs? Or maybe how they want to?
Yeah, dreams would be awesome. Love to hear what you dream to be able to do with an API.
No. All right.
Yeah.
No, you're good.
So
It's a complicated thing because what I have found. So just a little bit of background. I was at a church. We implemented eSpace in, I want to say it was like 2012 or 2013. So I mean, maybe 2014. It was a long time ago. Um, and at that point, the product was overwhelming. And there's been so much more added to it. And I think that part of the overwhelmingness of just the breadth of things you can do, you don't really think about the APIs till you're really up and going hard with the product. And then you're like, oh, I could shorten the cycle on this. I could make this easier. I could take out this human step. So those are the things that kind of excite me. And I personally love integrations. I think they're a lot of fun to work on. So Tom and I did spend a little bit of time dreaming up some use cases, and so we thought we might just kind of chat about what we dreamed up. Not that that's the only way or the best way, but just wanted to share those with you, and then see if that sparks any creative ideas about how you might want to use it.
yeah, one thing I want to mention real quick is, so we have two versions of our APIs. Version 2 is the latest, and it uses a different level of authentication than before. It uses an API key. And so if you're familiar with the way it was before, which really you just passed in, it used basic HTTP authentication, passing in your credentials for eSpace. This new way, which will eventually migrate everyone to, we don't have a date in mind yet, but eventually we're going to migrate, we're going to decommission version 1. The new way is actually by going into the profile of your account, and then you go down to API keys, and you can create as many API keys as you want, name them what you want, and it will you copy it to your clipboard, and then when you're calling the authentication, you actually pass in that API key to request a token. So you would basically, you can actually click here and copy it, and you paste in the API key here. And when you do so and run this, it gets a token back. And that token is a real long string that I've got up here. And then you hit explore. And once you do that, then it uses that token, which is a perishable token. It will, I should know the time on it, but it won't last. This won't last forever. And after a certain amount of time, it expires, and then you have to request the token again. So you just need to build that into your process, that if the token's expired.
I think it said that token's about a year.
Is it really? Okay. Is it long? So yeah, as long as it's in your process, and maybe you have to keep using it, but yeah.
Oh no, maybe the key is a year.
Okay. Okay. But once you
Yeah.
get that in place, then you don't have to do any other authentication, because it's going to look for the token that comes back.
Yeah, I don't think the API keys expire. The tokens do.
Okay.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it'll show you when they were created and last used, but I think it is that the token will expire. So,
Okay.
I think I want to jump in here real quick, and I think it's probably worth just talking about what an API is real briefly, just based on Nathan's comment, and I want to make sure that we don't gloss over that. So API stands for Automated Programming Interface, and it's much like the interface that you use like with eSpace, but it's for systems to integrate with. And again, systems have to be really super structured. And so they have a structured set of something they hand out, and then they get a structured set of something that comes back. So that structure is called a JSON object, or JavaScript object notation. And you can kind of see an example of it in the yellow box there. Usually begins with a curly brace and ends with a curly brace. And then you have like a label that corresponds with the field name. And then you have a value. So we call those key value pairs. And you can oftentimes or sometimes have something that's called an array. So an array is just a set of key value pairs that have their own name for the grouping of them. So this interface that Tom is showing here is called Swagger. And it's just an interface that's meant to expose the APIs so that you can see what might be possible. So if you were to scroll back up to the top, Tom, you can kind of read through here what this would mean. So equipment, get. So these are all the gets. So this would be a get the equipment list. So if you had attended the session just previously where they're talking about work orders and the mobile stuff, they spent a lot of time talking about equipment. Well, you could get all of your equipment out of the system by using the API equipment list call. And then you can join that into some other kind of tool for some other kind of processing. I'm struggling to come up with a really good practical example right off the top of my head here. But yeah, so it's just basically an interface so that different systems can talk to each other. So hopefully that gives you kind of like a foundation of what an API is. And this Swagger interface is just to give you kind of a picture of each of those calls, but then you can use each of these calls to do various different things. And I might take us a little off script here, Tom, just to go straight to the practical.
Okay.
And I really like the idea. One of the things that eSPACE is very good at is automating within itself. I mean, inside of an event, you can go create a work order. Inside of a work order, you can kind of work within the tool. And you can, have a public form that generates a work order. You can have a text message that generates a work order. But one of the things we dreamed up was, what if we needed to generate a work order based on some external stimulus like the weather? And so we used some of these low code tools. So make if this, then that.
Zapier.
Zapier, there's a couple of are out there. Those are low code integration tools. And a lot of those have ways of integrating into different things. So one of the things we thought about was, well, what if the weather changes and we've got some equipment that's outside and we want to, based on the forecast, generate a work order that might be go take down the umbrellas because we're expecting high wind. So that would be a really good way to use the API to get that work order in, especially if you wanted to get some like additional text. Like maybe you wanted to say, well, here's what the actual weather forecast is, and we want to shove that in to the work order description so that our facilities folks are smart. And just because the wind is forecasted to be high, maybe they can make a smart decision that says, well, I don't need to take down the umbrellas, even though the work order says take down an umbrella. I want to see a little more text about it. So at any rate, this is, in my opinion, one of the coolest things out here because there is a wealth of information and stimulus that can come in through these low code tools that we could use to generate activities inside of eSPACE.
Yeah, so let me talk through this one just so you can show, and this is a real simple one. Make and Zapier and if this and that have tons of these modules that you can connect up. We just strung up a couple here, but this is the weather one. So I had weather where I'm asking it, hey, tell me the weather forecast for tomorrow for a particular city. And then when I run that, or I can schedule it to run periodically every 15 minutes, I'd probably want this to run every morning or maybe every evening. And then it's going to come back with data when it runs. So it's basically going to say what the wind conditions are going to be for tomorrow. And it says tomorrow, the wind gusts up to 7 miles an hour, 7.37. So I've got just something here that says, basically it's a filter that says, is it greater than 5? And if it is, go to the next step, which is to get an API token from eSPACE. We know we pass in the API key, it gets us a token. This is something that just organizes it, sets a variable, and then we make our magic call to eSPACE, where we basically pass in some of the details to create that work order. So if I were to run this completely, which I can do right now, then it's going to run, get the weather, organize this. It basically passes all that in, and then it gets us back some good information saying it was successful. And then I could go over into eSPACE. Let's see if I can actually do this. And they'll change the module to work order, and it should show up in work order here as a new work order that came in. I think it'll show up here at the top. Yeah, so take down the umbrella. So yeah, this was just created a few moments ago. And again, that would be triggered by some timing. It could be you've got another system that has what I'll call a webhook, but something that triggers an event that runs. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. That runs this one that causes it to create a work order. Matt, do you want me to talk about the other concept we came up with? Or are there any questions about this?
I just want to invite questions, and I wanted to see if that's starting to help make sense of APIs, especially just from like I'm in the boat of I don't know what I don't know. Does this start making some sense or helping?
And this is creating something in eSPACE. So it's creating. You can use our APIs to pull information out of, which is what I'll show next when we move to that. I don't see any questions popping up here.
Yeah, I'm not seeing either. So yeah, let's move on to that next example. Well, we got one here.
To Outlook calendar. Okay, able to get the calendar into the shared calendar, but events don't transfer. Could that be due to the integration step we're missing? Yeah, I think we'd have to take a look at that to see what's going on with that, because depending on how you use, I mean, all the event details should be able to be pulled out of eSPACE to populate some other system, whether it's Outlook or something else. So the details should definitely be there. It seems like there might be something in the mechanics that's not allowing it to flow through.
Yeah, and I would say with using an API to get to an Outlook calendar, you're going to have to use some intermediary something, because Outlook does not have the capability to pull an API directly. So you're going to have to use something else in the middle to make that happen. Now, what you could do is you could subscribe to a calendar and go get that ICS feed and pull that into Outlook. But I don't think that's probably what you're trying to accomplish. I'd love to hear more about what you were hoping to do by having the events in the Outlook calendar, because that might fill out the rest of the story there.
It looks like Hal asked a question about tablecloths and adjusting the count of how many you have on hand with the APIs. Let's see. I'm trying to think I think we can do inventory updates. Inventory groups.
Inventory, and there would be
a item current. Yes, that would be current. So you could definitely update.
That's a get. You'd want to use. So that's probably another good thing to talk about here. There's different verbs. So APIs use these verbs to define what actions can be taken, and there's 4 of them. There's get, put, post, and delete. Mm-hmm. Put and post are really, really similar. The biggest difference there typically is post is create, put is update. So if we're trying to update like a resource amount, we would be looking for a put statement. So we'd probably want to look for, I saw inventory and a put on inventory down there.
Yeah, this technically actually would be a resource as opposed to an inventory item, which is on the work order side of things. So there is the ability, there is the ability to post resources. And let's see if you can put, can we actually do a put?
I'm not seeing a put for adjusting a resources. That may actually be an event adjustment.
Yeah, it might be. But yeah,
So I would look at that event update, and that may allow, you might be able to adjust the quantity on something that's already attached.
Yeah.
However, the other thing you can do is you can string commands together. So for updating a quantity on an event, you might have to remove the resource from the event and then add it back with the right parameters. And again, that's where something like the low code make if this then that, or Zapier can track that and keep those values in a place and then update them. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to show the drawing of information out of, and I'm excited about this one because we actually use ChatGPT with this example that we have. The scenario here is you've got something like Slack or something where you want to, on a daily basis, have it post what your events are for that particular day. This is one we've created. So where actually, again, the first two steps are being, getting the API token, then basically setting the token variable so that we can make subsequent calls with that. And this gets the occurrences for today and tomorrow. So basically, if I go in here and look at this, you can see it's basically passing in the today through tomorrow, which I think is midnight tomorrow, which is like the very beginning of the day. So it's saying, give me all the occurrences. Then it parses the JSON results out, and I have it passing all that in to ChatGPT. So basically, this is what gets passed in. Just a list. I basically gave it a prompt, given the data below, provide me a 1-paragraph summary for me to share with my staff. And I pass in the JSON. I mean, I just pass in what comes back after we've parsed out the JSON. I pass it in. And ChatGPT gives me a result that I then end up posting straight into Slack. And this is the example. It basically just describes everything. It even tells the details of whether or not it's an approved status, whether or not it's a public, or tentatively scheduled for multiple times throughout the day. I mean, gives all this information, and it puts that with this particular module in a setup Slack channel. So you could schedule this to run every morning, and it would pop something into your Slack channel that would have all that information. And you can make it fun by telling ChatGPT to be sarcastic or funny or real formal or something like that, and it could be a lot of fun. But I've had a lot of fun just playing with the AI aspect of this. But yeah, there's some interesting opportunities. Matt and I were trying to come up with some ideas of how we could.
And I think AI is really one of those things where I do not believe Ben. I know Ben's listening, so he'll probably chime in and say, "No, I don't have plans." I do not know of any plans to directly bring an AI model into eSpace such that we would be doing our own AI processing on the eSpace data. And for me, that's one of the really cool things you can do with the API is start feeding an AI model, a large language model, with some of these details and telling it to do things, because it will start learning and making good, smart decisions about what to do with the data that it's getting the more you train it. And so those are the kinds of things where it might make sense to pull some data out of eSpace and look at it and then make a decision and then go back and create a work order based on all the stuff that you told it to look at out of the API. Mm-hmm. I don't know that we're ever going to put something that robust from an AI perspective into eSpace, but you could do that today with some low code and using ChatGPT or your own favorite language model, large language model, and then have it go create a work order based on the fact that, you see all these different things happening. Especially maybe, you see a number of different, number of different scenarios that they just are like, hey, when this happens, we know that this means this other thing needs to go happen. So
yeah, I can't and won't reveal. Let's see. AI will come to. Okay, yeah. Ben is saying AI will come to eSpace eventually. We'll start with context-aware support tools, something that can look at your account and offer intelligent help. And yeah, I was just going to say, thank you, Ben. I was just going to say, AI has so much promise and potential to not use it where it would actually be helpful for churches and for making you and your staff more efficient. Would be naive for us. I think AI is growing into all spaces, and there's a lot of opportunity that we are just starting to look at. So, a lot of interesting ideas. All right, let's pause for some questions. We got about 6 minutes left before we need to break. Feedback, questions. Stop sharing my screen, but I can share it again if need be.
I was going to say one more idea that we had. Our elementary principal has said that it's too difficult to put a work order in for the boys' bathroom needs paper towels. So I've been considering getting something like a Raspberry Pi Zero, something that will fit inside of a button box on the wall in the bathroom, where they can literally just kind of like you go to a gas station, push this button if the bathroom needs attention, and you hit the button and it makes a work order.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
so
that's a cool
that
idea.
would be a really cool idea. Now, I mean, the non-API approach is to use a public form or text message because those are both available today. But yeah, you could absolutely. I'm trying to think through. You might actually even be able to pick up like use one Raspberry Pi and have one button in the girls' bathroom and one in the boys'
Sure.
bathroom, and then be
Yeah.
able to tell the difference. And you
Mhm.
might even be able to put a
Mhm.
water sensor on the floor. But
That'd be cool.
something like that that starts saying, "Hey, we've got issues." But yeah, that would, yeah. I mean, you could even take it to the next step. Get a project box that has like 5 different options: paper towel, toilet paper,
Sure.
whatever,
Yeah.
and then be able to use the API to push that in. So
Yeah. Hal's idea of an Amazon button is great. Honestly, you could create a QR code that would pop open an email, fill it in automatically, and then basically
Mhm.
use our
Mhm.
public email work order intake process that
Mhm.
we have. Ben also posted some things on, yeah, work order, text to work order options.
although
But
I'm
those aren't
guessing that
nearly,
your audience of elementary students probably is not going to be quite as savvy at being able
Oh,
to
oh, that's
or maybe
generous of you.
they
No,
shouldn't be carrying their cell phones. We'll put it that way.
it was the faculty, not the students. That was generous of you to assume that I was talking about students.
yeah, the Raspberry Pi idea is the most fun. So I give merit to that one if you wanted to run with that one, John.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, what other questions, ideas, thoughts? We got about 4 more minutes left.
While we're talking about that, I want to cover one other subject, and that's webhooks. It's not strictly API, but it's a different approach of getting programmatic information into eSpace. And we do offer some webhooks. And basically, you would configure for those webhooks what URL you want eSpace to hit. And then we will execute those webhooks on specific triggers. And again, if you look inside of the developer area inside of eSpace, it will tell you what those webhooks are. But that's another good way to use eSpace as a platform and that source of record or that initializing thing to then go kick off something else. So webhooks are just they're another mechanism, but they are a little more event driven. You don't have to have a time driven something or some other stimulus to make that connection happen.
And all the low code, no code we talked about, make and Zapier and if this and that will accept webhooks. You can configure them to accept a webhook call and with the payload that eSpace would send. So certainly options, all kinds of crazy options there. Anyone else? All right. Well, Matt, unless there's anything else you wanted to hit on, we can give these folks a few extra minutes back.
Yeah, just
before
one
the
other
next
thing I
session.
wanted to say. I was just reading our notes and just to, with the tier change that we went through recently, it's probably good to note that API access is available for premium and above. So if you've got a basic package, we're not going to make those APIs available to you, and it's something that you can certainly get with one of the higher tiers. So
thanks. Yeah, great point. All right. Well, thank you all. Appreciate you you joining us for this. I love talking about these things, and feel free to keep the conversation going in Huva. We'll keep an eye on the discussion that's going on around this breakout session in Huva, and be happy to answer any other follow-up questions that you have. So,
yeah, thanks for your time, everybody.
thanks.